And we are live. It is Friday. This is Why Libertarian. Another beautiful Friday episode here. I am live Monday through Friday at 7 p.m. So thank you for everyone. If you're a regular, if you're brand new, as usual, please just like, comment, subscribe, share, hit the notification bell, and also retweet and get this out there because tonight we're going to have an awesome libertarian candidate. But every single night we got something really high value, really important issues that we're talking about it. Obviously, we're always coming at it from a position of liberty, and libertarian principles. So definitely get this out there to whoever can benefit from it. So without further ado, I have a candidate that is running for office as a libertarian down in the great state of Texas. I want to welcome Nathan Polsky to the show. Nathan, how's it going?
Hey, thanks, Matt. It's going well.
Good, awesome. So just for anyone who's not familiar with you, where are you running and kind of like, who are you? What's your background?
Sure. So I'm running city council in Allen, Texas. My background, zero political background, which I think is one of the things that helps or brings me down to the same level as everybody else. I'm in IT. I do pre-sales, software delivery. Before that, I've been doing system administration, networking, just computer maintenance. And then before that, I was bagging groceries. I was stocking shelves. I was waiting tables. Yep. So kind of, I've been in the service industry a long time.
Awesome. So you said you don't have a political background. What really kind of compelled you to run? I mean, like, is this something that was a recent decision, or have you kind of like wanted to get into this for a while?
Yeah. So, and I've had a few forums in person and on Zoom, and where I kind of go with that is, before last year, I really didn't care too much about politics. So just wanted to be left alone, wanted to go to work, and, just live my life. With the amount of overreach that the government, threw down last year, closing businesses and just seeing all the information going around where people were ignoring facts, they were shunning people for not listening to the government. I felt that somebody has to get in here and make their voice heard, make a stand. So when Joe Jorgensen was running for president last year, I started to really start paying attention to politics, seeing what all the candidates were saying, and then I got interested. It's like, okay, well, libertarianism is very difficult to achieve at the federal level, at the highest level, because you're trying to play ball with the heavy hitters. So change starts locally. So that's where I was like, okay, well, let's start local. Let's see, can I make a change? Can I come in here and get people to understand what it means to be free, what it means to have liberty, and then based on if I can make a change, let's go up from there.
Yeah. No, that's awesome. I love that because I think all too often, some folks in the Libertarian Party and the Liberty Movement, they think like you have to hit a home run and that's the only way that you're successful. But really, I love the direction that you're coming at it from. Give me a sense of Allen, Texas. So I've written a little bit of business in like my 9 to 5 life in Allen, Texas. My understanding is that it's kind of a growing area of like commerce and business and things like that. Is that accurate? And what is Allen kind of like just in terms of a population center there?
Sure. So 20 years ago, Allen was tiny. Now we're almost at full development. There's very little land left that you can put infrastructure on. Population is just shy of 110,000.
Wow.
So
Okay.
compared to some of our neighboring towns, the one just south of us is double that, and also 5 times as large. Um, so yeah, a lot of
Y'all are
growth.
piled on top of each other, is what I'm hearing.
Yeah, we're piled on top of each other, and one of the other candidates. So right now for city council, there's 3 places that are currently open. One has an incumbent. The place that I'm running for does not have an incumbent, so I'm running against 5 other individuals um, in an open seat. The challenge with Allen is that it's an at-large city, so each council member represents the entire city. We don't have districts to break that up. So when I go out and when I start trying to spread word to say, hey, come vote for me, I have to hit a whole 110,000 individuals. Looking at the people who've actually voted before, it's only about 5,000.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah.
So very, very small number of individuals. But yeah, one of the other candidates, they've brought this number up where Allen is one of the densest populated cities in Texas, just over 4,000 people per square mile. That's how densely populated we are. It's mostly residential. There are some mixed communities where you've got some commerce and some apartments. But again, it's going to be mostly that residential population.
Yeah. So a buddy of mine who's watching operates a nonprofit here in New Jersey that advocates for civil rights and constitutional rights. He said his wife and he were this close to moving to Allen, Texas back in 2017. So that's awesome. So yeah, no, I've heard good things. So I mean, is it just a matter of what like some like things are just so dense that what are the issues that come with that, or what specifically are you looking to try and like take the edge off of if and when you win this seat on the council?
So one of the biggest concerns that I've heard a lot of citizens and residents kind of complaining about is property taxes.
Just give me an example. Since I live in New Jersey, make me envious. What are property taxes like in Allen, Texas?
So property taxes, the current property tax rate, I believe, is 49 cents per $100, and that's just for the city. So you've also got the school taxes on top of that. Yeah. They just lowered the taxes, the tax rate, I believe, a couple of years ago, but they didn't lower it enough so that when all the appraisals, all the homes got reappraised, even at the lower property taxes, people ended up paying more. So that's been a big discussion in a lot of our debates. Is $0 tax be preferred if we can get there, but a lot of the other candidates are going with here's the no new revenue tax, and they keep throwing this around where it's lowering the property taxes enough to that once the homes get appraised that you're not paying more.
Okay.
I think I think those property taxes are probably going to be one of the biggest hitters there.
Yeah. And what's interesting is you said so the property tax bill is somewhat separate from the school taxes. Is that right? Like so
Yes.
a home
Right.
gets two
So
tax.
at the end of the year, when my escrow gets hit from my mortgage, I can look at my tax bill and I see here's the school taxes and here's the city and county property taxes.
Oh wow.
So the school board themselves get to dictate how much they're charging for taxes, which the city council really can't affect. City council can come in there and say, well, here's what the property tax rate is for your residential and your business locations.
That's interesting. So that's different than a lot of other places because, like here in Jersey, it's all wrapped into one, right? And so
Mhm.
if you look at our tax bill, which is exorbitant, I mean, like I just kind of did some back of the napkin math. Like, so like a $250,000 house in Allen, Texas, right, is probably paying what, a couple grand in property tax?
Yeah, my house appraises around 340,000, which
Mhm.
I learned is the average for Allen. So
Okay.
uh, I think I've got that going as well. But I think last year my tax bill at the end of the year was around 6,600.
Oh, okay. All right. That's combined, everything included.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Yeah, here in Jersey, depending on the area there that you're in, that 350, $350,000 house, it's probably gonna run you like maybe nine or 10 grand, depending on the area. If it's South Jersey or West Jersey where they actually have cows and farmland and stuff like that, it's less than that. But no, it's and 2/3 of it is the school. Like that's
Mm-hmm.
always what it is. It's 2/3 of it is always the public school district. Does Allen have its own dedicated public school district, or
It
is it kind
does.
of like aggregated with anyone around you?
Yeah. So the school district in Allen, I mean, there's I grew up in Plano, which is just south, or I grew up in Richardson, which is two towns south, but I went to Plano schools, which is
Hmm.
just south. So my experience with the school district is a lot different than the way Allen is set up. I had to bus to school every single day until I got a car, and then I could drive 15, 20 minutes to school. In
Yeah.
Allen, because Allen is so much smaller, all of each neighborhood has its own elementary school, and those are going to be all K-5 or K-6,
Hmm.
and then it all gets into one high school.
Okay.
Uh, and the elementary schools don't bus, so everybody either walks or they ride their bike or their parents drop them off.
That's interesting. That's so I at least you don't have to pay for the busing piece of it. So that's one
There are
expense.
buses for I think the middle school has buses. I do see a bus come by every now and then.
Yeah.
But then once they get into high school, it's still buses, but that one's just right down the road from me.
Yeah. Well, so and then let me ask you. So the council doesn't really affect the school budget. Is that right? So what is it? The separate elections for say the board of ed or whatever
Yeah,
is really what dictates how that budget works.
there's actually so May 1st is the general election date for city council for the three
Mhm.
open seats. There's also three open seats for the Allen ISD board.
Okay.
So the Allen ISD has its own board, basically their own council, where they're making their own rules and regulations for the school itself, schools itself.
Okay. No, that's also interesting. So it's like separate, completely separate leadership, and
Mm-hmm.
I guess are the politics separate, or do they kind of bleed over between the two?
Uh, I think the politics are fairly separate. I mean, if you have a school issue, you go to the school board. You don't go to city council.
That's interesting. That's really interesting. All right. So let me. I kind of got like a sense of it. Is Allen still growing? Like, is Allen still attracting people and
Mm-hmm.
adding population and adding businesses and residential units and things like that?
It is. We have a couple major highways that run. One that runs right through the middle of Allen.
Hmm.
That one's effectively already built up, and then we have another one that runs just east to west along the northern corridor of the city. And there's a lot of undeveloped land there,
Hmm.
where they have different projects that are going in. That's these mixed communities where they have commercial lined up against the highway itself.
Hmm.
Then within a half mile of that, they've got apartments and patio homes and parks, and these are all planned development communities.
Yeah. So yeah, I probably a lot of the people from New Jersey are moving there. I would imagine.
California, a lot of people from
California, yeah,
California moving here.
yeah. I've definitely heard a lot of people talk about areas in and around Allen, Texas, in terms of
Mm.
New Yorkers, New Jerseyans, Californians talking about moving there. All right, well, so let's talk a little bit about your platform. So I want to make sure
Okay.
that we're kind of like highlighting, who you are as a candidate and what you're going to look like as a member on the council. If my computer will work here, I can pull up your website. So yeah, so if anyone wants to get information, I think this is right. It's
I did.
Nathan for the number 4 Allen ALLEN 2021.com, right?
Yep, that's right.
Awesome. All right. And so, in terms of your platform, what would you say? I know you have most of like the major ones listed here. I don't know if they're
Mhm.
prioritized, but from your standpoint, what's like the top issue that you really want to kind of focus on once you get into the council?
So once I get it, if assuming I can get in, my two primary issues, I've got two or three different primary issues. One is going to be private property rights.
Hmm.
If you own a business, if you own a home, do what you want as long as you're not breaking any ordinances that the city has voted on. Uh, we keep having people going to the city council meetings asking, oh, we want to do this or we want to do that on the property. It's like, you own the property.
Hmm.
You should be allowed to do what you want. We just had last year, back in March, the then mayor put a mandate and started shutting down businesses as part of the pandemic, and
Hmm.
that no one should be allowed to do that. So it's pushing back against the government, saying here's what we can and can't do with their businesses. If you want to require masks, then require masks, but let the business decide.
Yeah.
So that's one of them. Another big one that I've got, and one of my opponents actually said, "Hey, if you want decriminalization, there's a candidate here for you." I'm like, "Thank you, that's me."
Yeah.
Uh, so I really, again, it's your body, it's your life, it's your choice. No government should be telling you what you can and can't put in your body. As long as don't hurt somebody else, don't tell somebody else what they can do or can or can't do. There should be no crimes against that.
Yeah.
There's been a couple of issues recently, and I really don't want to add it as part of my platform, where some things have happened to residents that because they were smoking, because they had marijuana on them or something else. We just had protests because somebody died while in police custody.
Mhm.
And it's like, that wouldn't happen if these things were decriminalized, if there was not laws to do this. And trying to lower the taxes, some of the other my opponents are saying, well, police and fire need more money. We want to lower taxes, but police and fire need more money. Well, my response to that is, well, you can lower the taxes, and by decriminalizing, the police and the police are going to be less burdened. So you
Right.
don't need to add funding to them because they're going to be responsible for less of that.
Yeah.
So
Well,
those are big.
I'm sure that went over well with the police officers.
Uh, I didn't bring that one up in the GOP forum because everybody there was part of the GOP, and I didn't think that would be a good selling point.
Yeah.
But no, I've made it known that discussing in the budget, saying I want to gut the budget. Some people will say, well, let's lower the taxes and see what we can do with the budget after that. Well, to me, it's let's start at a $0 budget. Let's lower the taxes enough to where people are feel that's comfortable, and
Yep.
now let's see what we can fit in the budget. And another, as far as the property rights, and the property taxes and budget, also pushing for privatizing public infrastructure.
Hmm.
So last year I started looking into public-private partnerships. I don't know if you're aware of what those are.
Yep.
But I looked, and one that really got me sold was Central Park in New York. Is managed by a public-private partnership. It has a $80 or $60 million annual budget,
Mhm.
that 85% of that is handled through donations, and so only 15% of the park is comes through taxes. I'm like, okay, if they can do that,
Yeah.
then all of the public parks that we have a rec center, or we have an event center that's not used very often. It's a really nice event center, uh, but the city manages it.
Yep.
And I'm like, oh, we get a private company in there, say, here's what we need. They can do it cheaper. They can make money on it. They can pay the city to do it, and everybody wins because
Yep.
we can not have to shell out the hundreds of thousands of dollars each year to keep it operating.
Yeah, no, I think that's a very viable solution. I think, and you're right. If New York, the bastion of freedom that is New York,
Mm.
can pull something like that off, I would think that a city in Texas would be able to do the same. Um, no, I think that's fantastic. I Let me ask you about the decriminalization because I've talked to a couple of folks from Texas.
Hmm.
One a candidate and one a resident there who's kind of like doing some activism, and the conversation has usually sounded like, all right, there is this overwhelming support for legalization and decriminalization in the state of Texas, and it just happens that the politics, or specifically the politicians, are the ones that are completely pushing back against the public will. And I'm just wondering, like, what you think that stems from. Is it just a matter of fear? Is there some other issue that they're kind of like falling back on, thinking that even if we decriminalize here, it's going to cause another issue? I'm just wondering what your take is on that.
So I think there's a couple components in play there.
Mhm.
I mean, for starters, Texas is a red state, so you've got a lot of the GOP here that Republicans that just they think, oh well, smoking marijuana should be illegal and you should go to jail in a
It's
hard
the devil.
time. It's the devil.
Yeah.
Um, so, and that's what a lot of our politicians are. We do have some Democrats that are in some seats, and I think they push for decriminalizing or legalization.
Mhm.
Uh, Austin, the state capital, has actually decriminalized marijuana, and I think some people like to point to it as both showing that, hey, look, cities in Texas can decriminalize it without what this, regardless of what the state or federal law says,
Yeah.
and or B, hey, look how trashy Austin is right now because of all this decriminalization and people are smoking everywhere and people are lined up along the sides of the road.
Yeah.
So it's hard to juggle that. A lot of the big cities in Texas are all blue, so a lot of their policies are going to fall in line with that.
Yeah.
But I think it just comes down to years of, well, here's what the law says, so that's what we want to stick with, and they don't
Yeah.
want to change.
Yeah, and that's actually so we do a book club every single month, and so we've run through a handful of them. The one that we're reading right now is Nullification by Tom Woods, and so yeah, your point is extremely well founded. Like, you can take local action, and the aggregate of taking local action can in essence nullify or invalidate the centralized authority that's higher up the chain, and essentially kind of force their hand. So I would love for that to happen in more cities in Texas, just to show what can happen when you have a state house that is basically immovable on an issue, and the local towns and municipalities essentially put their feet to the fire in order to require it, or just it becomes a formality because you have so many places where it has been decriminalized.
Mm-hmm.
Um, let's talk about COVID a little bit. So, uh, what was the tenor around Allen, Texas? I know there's been a lot of publicity nationally about your governor taking the reins off or lightening up on the reins recently. Um, to which I was like, wow, well, why did he even lock down in the first place?
Right.
But that being said, I mean, what was it like in Allen, Texas? Because I've heard that even though the governor removed some of these mandates and restrictions and things like that, that some of the cities have, Austin being one of them, have still tried to keep some of these things in place. So is Allen similar to that, or how has that played out since, March of last year?
Uh, so it's been very interesting. Um, as I was saying before, the previous mayor did started lockdowns last year.
Mhm.
So he was trying to put mandates in, but that was removed sometime mid-summer of
Okay.
2020. Um, as far as the city goes, the council has put no mandates in place. So uh, they have not put any requirements. The only requirements that have been put in place were what the governor had said. Um,
Okay.
but going along those lines, he, per the Constitution, he can't make those rules. He can't force businesses to require masks. He cannot force businesses to close. So the local businesses here, they did put up signs on their doors that says you are required to wear a mask. I was not turned away from any business by walking in without a mask.
Mm.
So there's one business, and that was to get my hair done. They required you to wear a mask, and I'm like, okay, well, I'm getting a beard trim too, so you're taking that off. What's the point of the mask?
Yeah.
um, but that was their policy. So it's like, okay, I can live with the one time a month to put
Yep.
a mask on. But every other business, I've walked in, no mask. No one's asked me to leave. No one's, they offered masks. I'm like, no, I'm good. And they're like, okay.
Yeah.
We do have that weird split dynamic where you have a lot of people that are still pro masks. Um, Very interesting. There's actually a Facebook group. I don't know if it still exists or if it's been taken down. It was called Collin County Mask Warriors or Mask Holes or something like that. And it was a group that their sole purpose was to find people that were not wearing masks, take pictures of them, and blast them on social media saying, look, this person's ignoring the mask mandates. The incumbent for one of the other places was a member of that group, is a member, and was posting pictures on there as well. So it's like, okay, that's the type of person this is.
Yeah.
Um, but no, with the exception of social media people trying to out each other and saying, "Oh, just wear a mask." The businesses have been great. Once Abbott rescinded his order, all the small businesses around here just ripped down their signs. So I can walk into a small local business,
Mhm.
and they don't have a sign up. Their employees may still wear a mask. They may still be behind plexiglass. Some of them may not. Um, it's the chains that you're still going to see have the signs up, but
Sure.
they don't enforce anything.
Yeah. Well, no, I'm telling you, you're explaining something that seems like Shangri-La compared to North Jersey or just New Jersey in general. That's for sure. Um, so that's good. And what's interesting is after all the hoopla and everything like that, once the mandate comes down and the numbers don't exactly jump through the roof. In fact, I think they're actually down since that
Yeah,
time happened. It kind of it should be a bigger story than it is, right? But it just doesn't fit the narrative. So I think it kind of like gets brushed under the rug. Um, let me ask you about you are a big proponent of like privatization and private public partnerships. Where do you stand on like understanding that you don't necessarily have, this isn't necessarily your realm of purview if you were be on the council, but like voucher program or privatizing school systems. Where do you kind of stand on that, and what do you think kind of like the future would look like if you had your druthers in Allen, Texas?
so I'm a huge proponent of school choice. Um, I don't think we should be paying, using tax dollars to pay for schools.
Mm.
Um, to me, to me, saying, okay, here's where you live, so here's where your child has to go to school, means that the school just has to get by. They just have to do the bare minimum because they get paid regardless.
Yeah, they have
By
a captive
private,
audience.
yeah, you're forcing someone to go there, but by giving people school choice, the schools, if they still want to receive tax dollars, make the schools work for it.
Mm,
The schools would need to give better educations to the children so that families can say, well, this school, sure, I'll have to drive 10 minutes to take my child to this school over here in Allen, but that school does better. That school
yeah.
has a better curriculum. The children there are not necessarily smarter, but they're getting a better education, and it's going to force schools to actually work for it.
Yeah, and have to compete against each other, right? Like, I mean,
Exactly.
that's the beauty of it. And so, the biggest anti uh, vote or voice in the whole school choice debate is typically the teachers unions. In New Jersey, we have a very strong teachers
Hmm.
union. What's the state of unionized teachers in Texas, and do they hold a lot of power in terms of the political process, or are they somewhat muted?
I honestly couldn't tell you. I don't know that much about the teachers unions if they even have them here. Um, since that's not something that I can control
Yeah.
from city council. But if I did went to the ISD board, that would be something I could look into.
Yeah.
Um, we've got private schools. We've got a lot of people that are homeschooling here as well. There's actually another member of the Libertarian Party here in our county that runs a private preschool or kindergarten nearby,
Mm.
and she does not require any masks, no social distancing required at all. And all of last year, she's the only person who caught COVID, and that was when she was on
Mm.
a flight. So I would love to send my kids there, but one, it's a little bit too far away, and two, they don't the that school doesn't do K through 5. It's just pre-K and kindergarten.
Hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, if the other schools were opening like that, my kids have been doing homeschool, not homeschooling, but they've been doing distance learning
Yeah.
this whole year. And I've already told my wife that if the schools are going to require masks next year and do the whole social distancing, plexiglass, anything else like that, I'm going to say, all right, we're pulling the kids out because I'm not okay with that.
Yeah. And I think a lot of my community here in the Northeast have come to that conclusion too. If they're not going to provide any kind of school choice or anything like that, and there's going to be essentially this kind of lockdown even in the classroom, or permanent basically learn from home. I mean, it's better to just starve the beast. Just take the kids out of the system. Don't allow them to log having that many students at the particular school district, and maybe even afford your kids a little bit of a better or more tailored education by doing it that way too. It's I think it's opened a lot of eyes. I mean, where a lot of the people, I'd imagine it's a fairly red district there, or red city in Allen. Were a lot of the people screaming like, open the schools back up, or because I was saying shut them down. I was saying get them closed.
uh, I haven't seen a lot of people shouting about that.
Yeah.
And honestly, I think the city itself was predominantly blue in the last
Mm.
election, even though Texas is red and there's a lot of red people here. I think county-wise or city-wise, it was predominantly blue in the
It's interesting.
presidential election.
Yeah. Which does explain the whole Facebook group and the witch
Yeah.
hunts. So let me ask you about something that probably isn't as big of an issue because Texas takes a pretty firm stand on it, but just gun rights, like Second Amendment gun rights in Texas. I think recently, the House in Texas just passed a constitutional carry bill, if I'm not mistaken, and I believe it heads to the Senate. But what's the state of the Second Amendment there? I mean, is it embraced locally, or is there a strong push to try and actually restrict it?
Uh, so yeah, the House just met yesterday over one of the bills for constitutional carry. I believe there were some amendments to it, and we're going to discuss more today. But yeah, it should be heading to the Senate soon. Um, Texas currently has a license to carry, so you can carry a rifle, a shotgun, whatever you want. But any pistols you do have to have a permit for. But it is an open carry state. Um, that said, I see lots of people. They've got pistols on their hips. They've got them tucked, behind, underneath their shirts. Um, Again, I think that's going to be split down the political lines, the political boundaries there. You've got a lot of people on the left that want to further restrict it, or just get rid of them altogether, say nobody can have guns, except for the police. Um, and then people on the right are saying, no, we need more, or more freedom for that.
Yeah. Is it is that something that comes up at the council level? I would imagine it's just something that people kind of like.
I haven't heard about anything on the council level yet, and
Yeah.
I've been attending those now for the city council meetings for about 5 months now, and not one mention of guns at all.
Mhm.
They're the yeah.
Yeah, that's okay. If it's a non-issue, then that's probably better than it being hotly contested, especially the direction that it seems like the state house is headed in.
Yeah, I do. I've got on one of my ads and some on my flyers that I've been sending out. I've got Second Amendment sanctuary status. So
Mhm.
regardless of what the federal or the state governments do, I want to push for Allen being able to just Second Amendment rights.
I love that. I love that. It's right in with that that local kind of nullification feel to it, and the local politics kind of trying to dictate what happens higher up the chain as opposed to vice versa.
Right.
So why libertarian? I mean, why not to not to be that person that recites the name of their own show, but um, why the Libertarian Party? Why not Republican or Democrat?
Well, so I've never been a Democrat. Never looked at leaning that way. Um, I think when I first registered to vote, I registered as Republican,
Hmm.
just because that's what I knew. I didn't even know libertarianism when I first registered to vote. I knew Republican, Democrat. Which one are you? I'm like, okay, well, I'm not blue, so I'm red. Um, and once I started getting involved, a few years ago, and I started seeing what was going on, I voted for Jorgensen last year. I voted for Johnson before that. I voted for Johnson primarily because, well, it wasn't Trump and it wasn't Hillary. So, what are my other options? So that's when I started looking at, like, what are other options other than these two? And that's when I found Libertarian.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, well, what is the Libertarian Party about? I'm like, all right, it's mostly right leaning. It's capitalism, free markets, and then it also added in the giving rights back to the individual. Not telling, having the not letting the government mandate and dictate what people can do. I'm like, okay, you know, that makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah. And so, do you have an active Libertarian Party that's right there in your county?
We do. So Dallas County, which is the Metroplex, they have a Libertarian Party, and then I'm in Collin County. We meet monthly. We just had a meeting. What's today? Today's Friday, so it would have been Wednesday. We had our
Mhm.
monthly meeting, and yeah, we all meet together at a local restaurant where it's BYOB and open carry. So I think this month we had one of the largest turnouts that I've seen, where we had 20 plus people that were there.
I think a couple of people in the Northeast just had a heart attack if they were listening to that. um, no, that's awesome. So, how did you get like? Did you have to do your own research and then seek out the party, or did you know someone, or did someone in the party kind of
So funny
invite you in?
story how I found the local party. The local party actually found me.
Wow.
I I was somewhat active on Nextdoor, just keeping up with the community and whatnot.
Yep.
And I had made a comment on a post where somebody was complaining about something. I can't even remember what it was. It may have been taxes.
Hmm.
And I started pushing, taxation is theft, private property rights. And then somebody messages me and says, "Hey, I noticed that you're talking about all this stuff. Uh, are you aware that there's a local, Collin County Libertarian Party? We meet monthly." I'm like, "No, I'm not." And so they invited me to attend. I'm like, "All right."
Yeah.
So just went from there. So it's complete chance,
Yeah.
even finding that.
That's awesome. I actually just did this past week. I did an episode about um, being open and vocal about liberty because I think a lot of folks are like yourself, where they just kind of want to be left alone, right?
Mhm.
They just want to make a good life, take care of their family, live how they want to live, and I think in a lot of cases. This year particular or 2020 has really kind of taken a lot of folks like yourself and kind of shook you into reality and been like, myself included, like, okay, I can't just sit here because it's going to come for me eventually anyway.
Mhm.
So I need to be more vocal about it. So I love the fact that they reached out to you. It wasn't even the fact that you had to track them down, that there
Mhm.
was actually, a hand extended and invited you in. Um, do you see your local party growing? I mean, are you adding members?
We are. Each meeting that I've been to, we've had one or two new members
Hmm.
that have attended. We are actually talking about trying to get like a local baseball team or softball team together so we could, go and play against in the community. We missed the deadline for that, but we're looking at things like that to try and get more more of us out there.
Yeah. Yeah, that's good branding, marketing type stuff. I love that because if anything, we do. I say we, but I think the Libertarian Party in general, just doesn't do that great job of kind of like marketing and branding. And so I think that's a fantastic idea. Uh, what do you what's kind of like your campaign style? Like, what's your methodology? Is it just kind of like lots of ground game? Is that what it is, or is it a lot of kind of like ads and media, or is it a mix? What have you really kind of been targeting?
So my campaign team involves me,
That's
and that's
that's a
about it.
lot of times the way it goes.
So trying to go up against individuals that other candidates that are backed by the GOP, that they're backed by the Texas Democratic Party. They have large teams and money available to them that they're not using donations to pay for stuff. The parties are paying for things. The
Yeah,
local groups are paying for things. The Libertarian Party is really small. It's really hard to do that. Um, so getting out there and getting boots on the ground, I haven't had the chance to do that. Just haven't had the number of the bodies to do that.
yeah,
So I've been running a lot of ads through Facebook, um, where that's hopefully targeting the people that are on the least social media. It's hitting Instagram, Facebook, Facebook Messenger, where my ads are popping up. Um, I've got some flyers that I'm going to be mailing out here on Tuesday. So targeting some neighborhoods that way. Um, I was going to be targeting people that voted before, but some issues came up and I'm unable to do that now. So now I'm targeting a neighborhood.
yeah, yeah. Well, so that's also something that I think you have early voting in Allen too, right? So
Mhm.
I think a lot of people are going to be able to vote before election day. Is that right?
Right. So early voting starts next Monday. It's going to run through Saturday. There's no voting on Sunday, and then it ends on the 27th. So Monday and Tuesday. Then we get a few-day gap before the general election on that Saturday.
Yeah, that's an interesting dynamic because it really puts the onus on you to try and get to people before that process starts, right? So
Mhm.
I'd imagine you're in the thick of it right now. Um, it's something that's an interesting dynamic that I don't think candidates have had to deal with nearly as much in the past, unless you lived in one of those really rare districts where a lot of it was like mail-in voting and whatnot, or absentee ballots. Um, what's the tenor of the campaign been? I mean, have a lot of people been receptive to your message?
um, the one forum that I've been to in person, well, I've been to a couple in person. There was actually one that I had people show up to an audience. That was the Republican Party one. So of course there's no mask requirements, balloons and music and everything. And
Yeah.
I got a lot of good reception after I debated,
Mhm.
uh, with some of the audience members. Some said that unfortunately, they're currently backing the GOP candidate. Otherwise, they would probably vote for me because a lot of my policies fit in line with that. Um, and some of my ads on Facebook and talking with the community there, a lot of the kickback I get is from the decriminalization
Hmm.
and, or the not letting the government go and enforce private properties, enforce mandates. There was one person that they were in a non-HOA residential area, and they said
Hmm.
they had a problem with one of their neighbors had a junky yard. I was like, okay, well, it's their yard.
Yeah.
Are they violating any city ordinances? If they are, okay, you can go deal with it that way.
Yeah.
Um, but you don't have to go and call the cops on them because they're not cleaning up their yard. It's their property.
Mm. Yeah.
And they were like, well, if the cops aren't going to enforce all of that, then everyone's just going to have a trashy yard. I'm like, you must think really low of every single one of your neighbors.
Yes. Yep. No doubt that they do. They assume everyone else sucks and they're awesome. That's
Yeah,
basically
and
the way it goes.
a lot of the people that I've talked with or have had interactions with feel that if we do not have laws to enforce and the police to enforce those laws, that people are just going to start running amok and just throwing trash everywhere, and we're going to, everything's going to be on fire. Like, people don't want to do that.
Yeah. No. The boogeymen that people make up or they allow people to make up and stick into their minds is it's the biggest impediment, I think, to true freedom and liberty and the libertarian principles. It's just these
Mhm.
kind of like self-inflicted boundaries or fears that really come up, which are really unfortunate. um, in terms of the overall race, I mean, are you so in New Jersey? We're up against something similar. So, as opposed to being in an extremely red state, we're an extremely blue state. And when it comes to running races, libertarian candidates are, in a lot of cases, they're running a race that they pretty much know that they're not going to win, right? But they're winning it to get the message out, or they're running it to get the message out there, right? And to
Mhm.
to get people to kind of think differently and kind of shift that Overton window and present them something that maybe they've never heard before. Are you kind of attracting attention as a libertarian candidate? Like, has there been a libertarian candidate that's run in Allen for city council in the past?
Not that I'm aware of. And like I was saying earlier, I didn't really get involved with politics until the last few years.
Sure.
And nobody on the current city council is libertarian, as far as I'm aware. They've never attended any meetings. Um, Also, I don't know if it's all of Texas, but at least in our county, the city council and the ISD board elections, they're all run as a nonpartisan
Mm.
races. That being said, that doesn't stop people from going out and say, "Hey, look, I'm being backed by the Democrat Party, or I'm being backed by the Republican Party." Those people also get called out on it
Yeah.
by the people saying, "Hey, this is a nonpartisan race." So I've had the local Libertarian Party say, "Hey, do you want us to publicly announce that we support you in this race?" I'm like, "No, this is a nonpartisan race.
Yep.
Y'all can, as individuals, you're more than free to support me, but I would like to, go along with that nonpartisanship and say, I'm running nonpartisan
Yep.
granted, you look at my policies that I'm pushing for, you can tell it's not partisan. it's a libertarian policies, through and through. But we've got one candidate says he's running on a partisan election because he knows that's where the votes are at. But he wants to then lead on city council as a nonpartisan individual. It's like, okay, your partisan politics will play into how you vote on city council. That's usually because that's where your own desires, your stance on issues is where you line with your politics. So regardless if you say you're nonpartisan or not, you're typically going to vote one way or another based on which party you're a member of.
Yeah, no, that's an interesting setup, really. I appreciate the fact that it's nonpartisan. I think everyone pretty much knows, which way the wind blows with each one of the candidates, like you said, But I think that's an interesting setup. It's also difficult, though, from the standpoint, like you said, where, even you don't have an R or a D next to your name, the local party is supporting you in some, fashion, monetarily, or, providing bodies for your campaign or something like that. So I wish you luck. It sounds like you're coming up really close here to the election, and hopefully these last couple of days are really kind of fruitful for you. You're able to get in a lot of people's ears and get them to think a different way and really kind of show up for you. What can we do? So I know I'm going to throw the website up here again, just so folks can see it. And again, give everyone the website address again, and then where they can also follow you outside of just going to the website.
Sure. So the website is nathanforallen2021.com. You can follow me on Facebook, just Nathan for Allen. You could also follow me on Twitter. It's going to be at Judgment84. That one, that one's a little bit more vocal on a lot of my stances and has a lot more federal engagement as opposed to keeping it local with Facebook. So if you want to see anything that is local oriented, then check out the Facebook page or check out my website. Really just letting people know that, hey, there's an election coming up to choose who the council members are. And if we've only had 5,000 households out of 110,000 people in the city voting, that's not a majority of the population, determining who's running the city. That's an extremely small percentage.
Yep. And that's also a lot of room to potentially motivate people to get out and kind of like take more control. I think that's fantastic. Let me ask you about the Twitter handle. Where does Judgment come from? Is this
I have
like
no
a nickname?
idea. It's my Twitch handle. It's a few other handles. When I first set up Twitter, I think I first made that account in like 2009, and it sat idle with like 2 followers for so many years.
That's interesting. So it was just kind of like it sounded good, kind of.
I think I grabbed it out of a game or something at one point. I'm like, yeah, that sounds cool. We'll throw it on there. And now it's like, well, I've been using it for a few years, so I'm going to keep using it now.
Yeah. No, that's awesome. So yes, everyone follow Nathan. Definitely, we want to keep tabs and I want to hear how you do. Just to see if we're able to kind of again, get that message out there and get people kind of thinking a more liberty and freedom kind of route in terms of their local politics. I would love to hear about that. And good luck. I mean, if there's any way that I can help or get some messaging out, let me know, and I'll definitely be there for you. So, look, good luck. I am off for the weekend, but I will be back Monday. And actually, I'll have another candidate next weekend. I have the Libertarian Party candidate for governor here in New Jersey next week on Friday, Greg Neely. So that should be a good interview. So, look, have a good evening. Hopefully you have a productive weekend, Nathan, and we will keep tabs on you. Thanks, man.
All right. Thank you.
Have a good one.
All right. You too.